All right, let's go. It's okay. It's not too bad. So we are live, ladies and gentlemen. So sorry for the delay. Thank you very much for being here with Toby. Toby and I have been battling on the back end with, the audio. But with that being said, we are here. We are live. Toby, welcome. Welcome to the stage. How do you feel?
Well, I mean, it's been a roller coaster the last few minutes, but I mean, it's very good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. So, so before I go ahead basically to welcome you and introduce you to the program, do you want to kind of, tell us exactly how your day went, and then we could go from there.
Okay, so well, that's a very interesting question because as a product manager, it's always majorly chaotic. So jumping from one task to another, I had a couple of projects to make sure that I close out, and of course that would come with a lot of follow-ups. So I had a couple of meetings both with developers and external parties as well, and yeah, so quite busy, and but we're here. It's really a fun field day, actually. That's what comes with the job, actually, so no complaints.
Speaking of which, what about your week in general? How's it been?
Yeah, it's actually been good. It's been good. Although, to be honest, I think on Sunday evening I was contemplating on how exactly Monday was going to go because I had something very important that I had to get done on that Monday, but I wasn't sure on how it was going to go. It started very slowly actually, but I was able to pick pace and yeah, it's been good up until now actually.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing that. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. Welcome to the Career Transformation Series. It's sponsored by the Glappy Village. We are very excited to have an exceptional individual who embodies the idea of what we call impactful leadership and innovation. He is Oluwatobi Bamidele. He is an extraordinary product manager from my observation, working with him for the past 3, 4 years now. He is a driving force for change. He is, from my experience interacting with him, I think he has a blend of remarkable skills, a passion for problem solving. I remember knowing him about 3 or 4 years ago when, he was always jumping to the forefront of trying to solve problems for the organization. He has a very keen business acumen and a knack for creativity. And when he ventured into the world of product management, especially with the digital bank team at Polaris Bank, he has been at the forefront of building and managing, a diverse array of, captivating products and features. And his experience, extends not only to supporting his team, but also, working very closely with third party and internal developers as they build new products and functionality into the organization. He is very, very technically, he has this technical prowess that he would be delving into during the part of this entire program. And he has some experience also working with product designers, QAs, DevOps engineers, legal experts, you name it, decision makers. He is versatile. He is very impressive. Ladies and gentlemen, please do meet Oluwatobi Bamidele. Thank you very much, Toby, for being here with us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys, everybody.
Yeah, beautiful. So now, tell us a little about product management. Excite us with your journey with product management. What's got you interested in being a product manager?
Okay, so if I had to pick up the story from where you stopped, if you could recollect very quick, vividly when we met, then it was basically on the ground of business, right? So I can remember very well. I was working on a project then because I had the intention of building a business actually to start with. I think that was 2018. So that sort of like gave me a good grasp of what happens in the world of business, right? So, but for some reasons, you want to build something from the ground up, especially something in the manufacturing space, a very, very difficult space to actually operate in, especially in this environment. So, because of some audios, I couldn't really like pull it off because it was actually a massive project. So, but of course, everything I've learned over that space of I think 18 to 24 months was like very vital to um who I am today actually. So and I just felt like okay, now we're wrapping up the project. What's the next thing to pick up? So I just felt like I had to like embrace LinkedIn at that point, and a couple of very interesting people on LinkedIn, business oriented guys. I was just like innocently sharing my views, learning from them, and as well sharing my views. But I discovered that over the time, what I was sharing sort of like got attention of some set of people, which I think you included, right? So, and we we started talking. From there, I picked up a project that we worked on together that started the relationship that we have currently. And after wrapping that up, I was not like at the crossroads. I was thinking, okay, so where do we go from here? And I can remember then it was in between either doing DevOps or product management. So I had to do a very, very detailed findings around what both entails. And I sort of felt like I'm sort of like more aligned to product management, basically because of some of the things you mentioned already. I'm driven by three things. If I had to drill it down to three things, making impact, like huge impact, and then solving problems, right? Those three things are very important. Two things are very important. So I feel like, well, it looks more like product management is at the center of that. So let's just go ahead and explore that. So yes, that's basically what brought me to where I am today.
Nice. And how's the journey been for you so far?
Well, for for every good and competitive thing, it's always come with its challenges, right? So challenges of having to have a good understanding of what has to be done, because I can remember very when it was very intense. I was learning. I was on a project. I was running a course. I had a couple of books to ensure that I'm well aligned, because I'm someone who, if I want to learn something, I want to be sure that I'm well grounded in it. It's either we do it well or we don't do it at all, right? So, and it was very intense. And then we moved from okay, we have a good understanding of what is happening in this space now to breaking into like literally and practically breaking into the space. And it's very competitive, right? It's competitive because we have a lot of people, how tech is, especially in this environment. It's just more like a shortcut to getting rich, if I can use that term, right? So, so everybody wants to do it because of that, it's sort of like crowded. And another thing to it is the fact that, and of course, basically around the law of demand and supply, right? Something that you have a very huge demand for with less supply, definitely supply for with less demand, definitely there's going to be a problem. So we have less companies having with um how do I put it, with little to no time and energy to deal with someone who is just starting out, right? Because they want someone who is just going to come in and then hit the ground running straight up. Of course, you know that a profile for that is not matched for someone who is just starting out. So there are less guys, there are less companies who are ready to actually like explore and try out whether you're smart or you're not smart, to just like you are new to this space and you're hungry to actually learn and then build your career from there. But for most of the guys, it doesn't matter whether you're smart or you're not smart. If you have experience, but I can remember very vividly, I spoke with a couple of guys in that space, like founders of tech companies here actually, and we had very good conversations. But when after all been said and done, it was around. Do you have experience? Have you worked with engineers before? As at then, no, I haven't. So on. that was the deal breaker, right? So yeah, it's been challenging, but it's been fun as well.
So let's dig into that a little bit. For those of us listening, Toby is a product manager based in Nigeria. So a product manager in Nigeria, and when he keeps talking about here, he's referring to Nigeria because he lives
That's
and
correct.
works in Nigeria. And then
Yeah,
also to bring some color as well, he is when he says competition, he's talking about the hyper competitive nature of what it means to get into tech in general in Nigeria.
yeah,
I believe you live and work in Lagos.
yeah. I do. I do.
And then, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who do not know, Lagos is a state in Nigeria with a population of well over 30 million people. And then with 30 million people, they are practice to have a job in Lagos with that number of people in a field in tech that is relatively new, like agile and product management. You can imagine that it is one in a million chances. So tell us about that experience. How were you able to go from, because I remember when I met with you about 3 or 4 years ago, you
Yeah,
were interested in being a business development manager. In fact,
yeah.
you were doing business development at that point in time, and one of the things I was very attracted to was the way you expressed yourself, the way you carried yourself, the way you provided recommendation, business advice on highly business centric conversations. You lend your thought leadership, especially your writing. In fact, I've stumbled on a couple of your writing when I've read your work on LinkedIn. When you
Yeah.
the way you articulate yourself on business problems was, phenomenal. Now, taking that experience, writing, discussing, tell us about how you were able to convert that into getting a job as a product manager in Nigeria, in Lagos. How was it?
Right. Yeah. That's a very good question. So, if I can mention, I think majority of things that we have around, especially say in corporate, largely circles around visibility. You're selling a product. Your product only is only going to sell when you have the visibility, right? If the visibility is not there, definitely it doesn't matter how good that product is. It's most likely not going to go anywhere. So, one thing I was able to learn very quickly is how to authentically, that part is very important, how to authentically put myself out there and then showcase what I can do. Because it's not about it's okay, you're looking for an opportunity. I can come to you and say I can do XYZ, really doesn't justify whether or not I can do it. It's just by mouth. But when you see or hear what I have to say regarding that particular thing, it might not be enough entirely to justify my competence as far as that particular thing is concerned, but it's going to speak way more to okay, he has knowledge, he knows what he's talking about. And of course, if I haven't probably explored that space, I wouldn't know as much as I do, right? So, and I feel like it's a better strategy than just going around asking people for please, if there's a role here, hire me, right? So, and particularly I like having very interesting and intelligent conversations, right? So, and business is a good way to start with the skills I have in business. I just there to just launch in that and then see where it will carry me, basically.
Hmm.
So visibility is a very good part, and well, yeah, it's worked really well so far.
So let me break that down. What you are saying is for you to be able to get the job you had today, you were
Yeah,
extremely visible. You were visible on social media. You were visible on LinkedIn. You kept
yeah,
writing, you kept commenting. I noticed, I was reading couple of your comments on Dr. Ndubisi Ekwekwe.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
I've read some of your work with under him. So anytime he engages on LinkedIn, he is, for those of you who do not know Dr. Ndubisi Nkekwe, he is a prominent writer. He combines his writing skills, being a professor in, I think, is it Harvard or MIT? One of these Ivy League
Yeah.
universities. He's a professor there. He is a patent holder. He is an electrical engineer. He is also, a very gifted trainer. He actually has a company that actually provides business trainings in Nigeria in partnerships with Pan African University in Lagos and a couple of all these large multinational organizations in Nigeria. And he also speaks and writes on politics as well, And then one of the things that Toby has done was to constantly engage with that guy's content. And because of the thought leadership of Dr. Ndibisi and Toby's thought leadership as well, it's a good combination because that write up and that interaction attracts the kind of people that Toby is looking to impress. Let me guess. The people who actually made that decision to hire you, did they see some of your writings online where they said, "Hey, are you interested?" Or how did that work to the point where you went from being a writer to getting a job? Walk us through that experience.
Okay, so I think I have a couple I could share, right? So, although the ones I would mention are not directly related to the one that actually got me my job. So, there's this particular person I know. Actually, we got to connect on LinkedIn, but we sort of like we've taken it beyond LinkedIn. We've met physically before, and it was basically on my interactions on LinkedIn. I think he's been following my post for like sometimes, and eventually we had to connect. We chatted, and finally was like they would like to meet me physically. Like I want to see the person behind the screen, right? So and we met physically. That's one. Particularly there's one I would like to share. This particular woman is a recruiter,
Hmm.
and I didn't know. And she did that for, if I'm not mistaken, about 6 months. She just connected. She sent the normal connection request like a normal person, and I accepted. Meanwhile, she's been following my work. It was just on that Sunday afternoon I got a message. Are you open for XYZ role? Like what? I don't even know who you are. So so and so that was how it happened. I came for the interview, and so if eventually it happens that the project they were trying to bring me on was more like a very highly skilled project. So they felt like they need someone who is more handy to come in. She tried keeping me on the side to just ensure that okay, I don't want you to go to somewhere else. Whenever we have something else open, we'll call you back. So yeah, that was what happened really. But again, too, the one I had, the one eventually that got me to where I am today, came from LinkedIn as well. So
Amazing. Amazing. So I keep saying this to my community, um, especially for those of them, those of us in the career space. Keep writing, keep selling your wares, keep selling yourself, show your thought leadership, especially on platforms like LinkedIn. You don't know who is watching, you don't know who is reading.
absolutely.
They might be there just observing from behind the scenes, and it might take them 1 year, 6 months. They would not say anything. They might not even engage with your content. They might not even give you a thumbs up, but just keep at it, and something
Yeah.
is eventually going to happen. Toby has just shown us exactly that. Now, thank you very much for sharing that personal story. We appreciate that. Now, I wanted to do a deep dive into, you know, the world of product management in Nigeria. Tell us about it. How do people really practice product management in Nigeria, and what is that experience like?
All right. So well, I would try as much as possible to maintain the scope of your question, right? But at the same time, I would sort of like to expand it a little bit, because the menace or the chaos that we have today in the world of procs management, it's actually global. It's not
Mm,
like yeah, it's a global problem. If you pay very close attention, you realize that for some of these well-developed countries as well are still trying to struggle to understand what exactly that role is for. A lot of people are still confused. But let me bring it back home. So in Nigeria, of course, it's still something we are trying to get a good grasp of, right? And to a good extent, I won't say the country is doing bad. We have um, a lot of product management roles currently occupied and the ones that are also opened. However, there's still the challenge of having to understand what exactly the role is all about. Because a lot of guys too, to be truthful, a lot of guys through a lot of companies are just doing it just like let's jump on the bandwagon, right? They said they say okay, for you to be a full-fledged tech company, you must have product managers. I don't even know what the heck that is. So, but then let's employ one. Let's see how it goes. Then they
mhm.
bring you in, and then you're wondering like, well, what is going on here? So, but largely we have people who are doing very well in that space. Although, again, too, it's also important to mention that the flavor of product management differs from company to company, even in developed countries. So, because the way company here would like to structure how product management works in that space will be different from company B. How company B is going to structure. However, doesn't mean that there are no um, cross paths or maybe fundamental stuff that need to guide and put you guys together. So, to a very good extent, I wouldn't say Nigeria is doing bad, but we still have a lot to improve on. Actually, we have a lot to improve on. A lot of it needs to be well to still be well defined, because I I I think to an extent that um that misconception of what the role is supposed to be is still creating confusion around you. They bringing you in and then giving you something else to do, right? Or bringing you in, you are doing a part of what you're supposed to do, but they carry on something that is not supposed to be your responsibility to come join yours,
Mm,
right? So yeah, that part is also very critical, because the moment there's a loss in focus, what I'm supposed to do is not what I'm basically like largely doing. It's going to lead to two things, like the first, and both of them are very critical to the existence of that business and to the well-being of the product manager you have employed. Those things are very important. One is there will be less productivity, and that could be due to a number of reasons, right? And of course, when there's less productivity, definitely it's going to lead to less what's it called, loss of business.
mm.
Absolutely. And the degradation of well-being, eventually that would happen. So yeah, so it's important that while we are also trying to like find that path, we're trying as much as possible to keep the light on, but it's also important that we creatively look at how we can sharpen the edge that we have now to improve that process.
Mm. Okay, what I'm hearing you say is product management, the issues and the pain points with product management is not just local to Nigeria. That people all over the world are facing the same issue because they struggle with understanding the role of the product manager. Now, let's talk a
Absolutely.
little about the role of the product manager. Tell me about a particularly challenging product management problem that you have encountered in your career as a product manager, and how have you been able to successfully navigate it?
Well, if you speak to, regardless of the number of years of experience that you have, if you speak to a product manager, one of the things they're going to mention is people management,
Mm,
especially if you're an IC, if you're an individual contributor. One thing that you would have to pay, you are doing, you are going to do more is trying to ensure that you manage your project end to end, and of course, every touch point you would always meet people there. So, and it's important. That's the reason why it's important for you to know to understand human relations, like in different capacity, because the personality you are going to meet at touch point A is not going to be the same with the personality you are going to deal with at touch point B. So you've got to understand how to firstly understand who you are dealing with, and on the ground, on which ground is the person actually standing, because when you understand who you are dealing with contextually and where the person is coming from, would help you guide how you make your approach, because it's very important. And particularly if I can mention an example, um there was a project I was working on. Fundamentally there was something wrong in the settings when it comes to human interaction. So I knew I had to deal with that, right? So, and um so I was just thinking, I think it's very flawed, if I'm permitted to use that, to think that everybody will behave maturely. So um so initially I was thinking, yeah, maybe people just come around and then we can find the agreement. But I figured that, yeah, it's not looking like this is going to work. So I had to divine I had to actually devise a strategy around, okay, um before before this whole thing goes south, and then eventually it's going to look like I'm the one who is actually the bad egg here, right? So I need to find a way around actually making things very clear. Let's even know what we are dealing with, and everybody knows is our position, right? So I have to find a way around that, and then bring everybody together and respectfully table my own opinion. Everybody makes contributions, and then we have our agreements, and then we can move.
mm,
So people management is very critical. Now it's easier said than done actually, and in different scenarios, some are actually more critical than the other, right? So, but overall, it's something you have to have the willingness to actually learn it, and it's not as if you become a pro i- the first day. It doesn't work like that. By the time you garner experience, you understand that, okay, I dealt with a similar scenario, say, just like hypothetically, you are facing a scenario and they feel like, okay, I actually dealt with something similar to this last week. Then it's going to inform your new approach as against, yeah, this is your first launch in the waters, you don't understand what is going on here, you're most likely going to run into some errors, which is fine. It's not bad to make mistakes, it's just not what is bad is actually not learning from it. So um be open to learn and make the effort, commit effort to actually doing the right thing and learn from it, basically.
mm. Thank you. People management is was one of the biggest challenges you've dealt with, and you've kind of shared with us some of the tips with which you use in navigating that. Now, that kind of lends itself to my next question around, diverse teams. Now, I know from, when I read your profile, one of the things I noticed was that you had experience working with legal experts on one hand, and and developers, software developers on another hand. Now,
Yeah.
that balance between these diverse teams, collaborating with these two groups of individuals with different skill sets, what strategies did you find most effective in fostering that collaboration and alignment between these folks?
Okay, very good question. So, and again, too, if I can start with this, that's the reason why communication, crisp and explicit communication is very important.
Hmm.
So, and so you also learn how to actually make your point known in a very respectful manner. One thing, although, when it comes to collaboration, is of course, you're dealing with another person who believes, whether you believe it or not, believes he or she knows his or her job. Take it or leave it. So the one of the worst mistakes you can make is go there and go act like you want to come teach the person his or her job. So you don't want to do, because the moment you do that, you're going to encounter what's it called, a form of repulsion, right? Because it happens to everybody. This is my space. For example, I'm working with a developer. I doesn't mean I have to start acting like I know more than the developer. You don't want to do that. I'm working with the legal personnel. I don't want to start like acting like I know more than what the person has to offer. So even if in some instances when I have a different opinion, I need to find a way to communicate that without being offensive or making it look like um I'm trying to teach the person his or her job. And that's the reason why it has to come in form of an opinion, not an order.
Hmm.
It's easier to actually take an opinion than take an order, especially if you are dealing with someone who is actually an equal with you or someone who is your superior. I mean, you can't order your superior around, neither can you order your equal around. It doesn't work. So there's nothing you can do. You can literally you can't give order. So, and if you want the person to actually collaborate with you, and this is your project, right? You wouldn't want a situation where a project that shouldn't last more than 3 months is taking 6 months because of the the frictions that you guys are having in terms of communication. So learning how to respect people's space and then give them that free roam while you also try to nudge them when necessary is very important. That's one thing. And another thing I'm also going to mention is active listening.
Hmm.
Right.
Beautiful.
So I need to it's important that before you start making a case, you need to understand where the person is coming from. Okay. But if it's just about blindly making, okay, this is what I think, this is what we have to do, I don't really care about what you think. What you think really doesn't matter that much. Definitely, there's going to be a problem. So, but listening to the person will feel understood first, and then again, that creates the kind of space for the person to actually listen to what you have to say, right? And then when you are able to present what you have to say and not make it look like an order, then it's not like you are creating a space whereby the person will feel more comfortable taking whatever you are saying.
Hmm.
Because one thing that would be hard, so one thing that is going to be that will be impossible, that most likely won't happen, is something that, say for example, something that will make me look stupid for taking your order. And that's the reason why even when you are telling the people, when you are telling someone the right thing, just because they want to save face, they would still not agree.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
that's why they will find it hard to agree with you because they want to save their face. So that's it. It's important to ensure that you don't even put them in that position to start with.
Hmm.
So active listening, and then just respect people's space and then let them do their job.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing that. Now, I know we do have 4 more minutes to the end of the session, and I have two
Yeah.
questions for you. The first is about I know you have been a prominent contributor to a couple of product schools in Nigeria, like Utiva, and I know you also helped Dr. Okekwe's. You helped his school as well, his product school. Tell us about some of the insights that you have gained from being in these places, so that aspiring product managers can learn from. What are some insights you've seen and heard and read interacting with Utiva and all of these product schools that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, it's important. It's actually very interesting because I think about 2 weeks ago I had a session with one product school, and there's also like a how do I put it, a product show off. where after the completion of the program, um, those guys were divided into teams and then they had to work on projects. So firstly is exposure, right? Exposure, because it gives you access to see and hear both what you know before and what you don't know. Now I get to interact with, okay, these guys are working on this. This is what this person knows. You know, there's sharing. Basically, that's what it is. I'm sharing what I know. You are sharing what you know, and then we can learn from each other. Basically, that's the best way to actually learn, because I can't. I'm not enough on my own to start running around to learn everything on my own.
Hmm.
So having to collaborate with others and learn from them, either by assisting them to do something. For example, I actually worked on a few projects um with Prof, right? So I wrote a couple of business cases, and those sort of like gave me a good understanding or an insight into how those businesses actually run. Some things, something I wouldn't have done, I most likely wouldn't have done on my own, right? So having to pick up stuff like that helps build you up, because it gives you the leverage of having to learn from people, and then exposes you to something that ordinarily you most likely won't have had access to when it comes to probably learning. And again, too, my willingness to actually share and make impact is part of the drive as well.
Amazing. Thank you. We are out of time. I just want kind
Yeah,
of
we are.
I just wanted to kind of summarize all the things you shared, especially for our audience here. You talked about what has helped you to become the product manager that you are today. It started with your ability to, first of all, consume content, which is you're an autodidact. You love to read, and not just reading and taking all of that information and keeping it to yourself. You like to share. You like to give back. In the process of giving back, that's how lots of people got exposed to your work. Lots of people saw your work for the first time, and that got them curious to say, who is Oluwatobi? And that eventually led to multiple opportunities for you, including getting to work with Dr. Ukekwe, the professor, the Harvard professor, where you wrote multiple business cases for him, which allowed you to develop a good understanding of business that influenced your decision to becoming a product manager, so that you can help organizations in their development of products and their business architecture, their business structure, and their business development. And then you took that knowledge, and while working with teams internally, you have been able to help teams grow through, supporting, making sure that you respect their space. Even when you were interacting with them, you show there was this mutual respect. These were diverse teams, legal and development. You showed respect regardless, and you were able to allow them feel heard and respected. And you did this through active listening. And then subsequently, we are sharing with this audience that they should understand that learning is a two-way street, that they are learning, but at the same time they should be open to giving back. By doing that, they develop holistically as a professional, and if their interest is to become a product manager like yourself, that is one way with which they could do so. Did I capture everything?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you very much, Toby. And there's no time we would have been able to take questions from the audience. What we are going to do basically is some of the questions that you've shared, we would ask the audience to share it on our LinkedIn page that you can respond, and give them a detailed response, especially since we're out of time. So, Cynthia, I see your question here, Cynthia Mobis. Where she's asking if you can give an example of how you've communicated by approaching a situation, and I understand also that Kelly is also asking another question as well. So Kelly and Cynthia, please do well to drop these questions on our LinkedIn page underneath Oluwatobi. If you go there, basically you're gonna see this same video there. Just drop your questions there, and we are very, very, very sure that Toby is gonna come back to those questions and answer them very, very detailedly. Thank you very much, Oluwatobi, for your time. Looking forward to seeing you again on our program.
The pleasure is real. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Have a good one, team.
All right.
Bye bye.
Yes, sir. Bye bye.